Brendan Dassey trial transcript, day 4. State of Wisconsin plaintiff versus Brendan Dassey defendant. I'm going to scroll down. This was April 19, 2007. And we'll just scroll past all this and get right to it. Okay, reconvened at 8:38 a.m. The court. This is the case of State of Wisconsin versus Brendan Dassey. It's 06-CF-88. Appearances, please. Attorney Fallon, morning, Your Honor. May it please the court, the state continues in its appearance by Special Prosecutors Ken Kratz, Tom Fallon, and Norm Gunn. Attorney Freeman. Attorney Mark Freeman appears with Attorney Ray Edelstein and Brendan Dassey. The court. Morning, counsel. Morning, jurors. Members of the jury, if you recall at the beginning of this case, I gave you some preliminary instructions. One of them concerned evidence. It was evidence defined, and it then said evidence is, and it gave you 3 different kinds of evidence. The third of that tripartite was something called a stipulation. Third, evidence is any facts to which the lawyers have agreed or stipulated. There also is going to be an instruction later on that will tell you that the district attorney, or in this case the special prosecutor, and the defense attorney have stipulated or agreed to certain facts. And those facts would be, as stated, if the particular witness had been called, he or she would have testified as follows. I'm going to read to you now 3 agreements or stipulations that the parties have agreed to. These are called trial stipulations. The first is as follows. Stephen Schmitz is a citizen living in New Holstein, Wisconsin, a community approximately 30 miles west of Manitowoc, Wisconsin. JoeEllen Zipperer is a citizen living in rural Manitowoc County, Wisconsin. That if called to testify, Stephen Schmitz would testify that on October 31st, 2005, Teresa Halbach came to the Schmitz property to take a photo of a vehicle for Auto Trader magazine. Schmitz would indicate that Halbach was at his residence at approximately 1:30 p.m., was there for approximately 10 minutes, was wearing a white shirt, waist-length jacket, and blue jeans. Schmitz would state that before leaving, Halbach provided Schmitz with the latest Auto Trader magazine and a bill of sale, left his property, and drove away in her SUV. That if called to testify, JoeEllen Zipperer would testify that on October 31st, 2005, Teresa Halbach came to the Zipperer property to take a photo of a vehicle for Auto Trader magazine. Zipperer would indicate that Halbach was at her residence between approximately 2 to 2:30 p.m., was there for approximately 10 minutes, was wearing a white top, waist-length jacket, and blue jeans. Zipperer would state that before leaving, Halbach provided her with the latest Auto Trader magazine and a bill of sale, left her property, and drove away in her SUV. Zipperer would finally state that Avery Salvage Yard is no more than a 10-minute drive from her residence in Manitowoc County. That's the first stipulation. Counsel? Yes, and will that be marked as an exhibit, Judge? The court. I'm going to have it marked as an exhibit. Now, I just want to have you affirm for the record that this is your stipulation. Attorney Kratz. That is, Judge. The court. Likewise, defense. Attorney Freeman. Yes, Judge. The court. This will be marked as an exhibit, and we'll get to the exhibit. Well, I guess we'll get to the exhibit number now. Exhibit number 196, marked for identification. The clerk. 196. Attorney Kratz. 196. Thank you. The court. The second trial stipulation is as follows. Number 1. On October 31st, 2005, Bobby Dassey was the son of Barb and brother of the defendant Brendan Dassey. Bobby Dassey lived in the same residence with Barb and Brendan Dassey at the time. Number 2, that if called to testify, Bobby Dassey would state that between 2:30 and 2:45 p.m. on October 31st, 2005, he was inside the Yonda Dassey residence where he observed a blue/green Toyota RAV4 stop outside the residence in close proximity to a maroon van that his mother, Barb Yonda, had for sale. Bobby Dassey would state that he observed a young woman, that he later came to identify as Teresa Halbach, exit her vehicle, take some photos of the maroon van, and walk toward the trailer of Stephen Avery. Bobby Dassey would further state that after taking a shower, he left the residence at approximately 3 p.m. to go deer hunting, at which time he still observed the RAV4 parked outside his residence, but that Teresa Halbach was not observed. Bobby Dassey would state that he returned to the residence at approximately 5 p.m. and he no longer observed the RAV4. That completes the second of the stipulations. Counsel, and here I'm directing my question to the special prosecutor. Is that your stipulation? Attorney Kratz. It is, Judge. The court. And counsel for the defense, is that your stipulation? Attorney Freeman. That's correct. The court. It will be marked as exhibit number 197, marked for identification. The clerk. 197. The court. The third stipulation is as follows. Number 1, on October 31st, 2005, Scott Tadych was the boyfriend of Barb Yonda, knew the defendant Brendan Dassey, Steve Avery, and other family members living at the Avery salvage property. Number 2, that if called to testify, Scott Tadych would testify that between 7:30 and 7:45 p.m. on October 31st, 2005, he was at the Yonda/Dassey property where he dropped off Barb Yonda. Tadych would testify that he observed a large fire in the burn area behind the detached garage of Stephen Avery. Tadych would further indicate that at the time he observed Brendan Dassey and Stephen Avery standing next to the fire. To the state, is that your stipulation? Attorney Kratz: it is, Judge. The court: the defense: is this your stipulation? Attorney Freeman: yes, Judge. The court: it will be marked as exhibit number 198, marked for identification. The clerk: 198. The court: ladies and gentlemen, there will be additional stipulations, but not at this time. Attorney Kratz: thank you. The court: you may proceed. Attorney Fallon: state would call Mr. Rodney Pevytoe to the stand. Rodney Pevytoe, called as a witness herein, having been first duly sworn, was examined and testified as follows. The clerk: please be seated. The witness: thank you. The clerk: please state your name and spell your last name for the record. The witness: my name is Rodney Pevytoe, Pevytoe. Direct examination by Attorney Fallon: what do you do for a living? I'm a special agent with the Wisconsin Department of Justice in the Division of Criminal Investigation. I work in the Arson Bureau of that unit. How long have you been in the employ of the Department of Justice Division of Criminal Investigation? I've been with that agency for 27 years. 25 years have been in the Arson Bureau. Prior to joining the Department of Justice, did you have any other law enforcement experience? Yes, I was a reserve deputy sheriff in Marathon County. It's near Wausau, Wisconsin. What kinds of cases does the Arson Bureau involve themselves with? Well, generally speaking, we investigate fires and explosions that occur here in the state of Wisconsin. We'll investigate the cause. If it's determined to be of accidental origin, we do some reporting and then basically end our involvement. If it's determined that there's some criminal activity, we work with local law enforcement and further the criminal investigation into that matter. All right, Agent, would you pull that microphone a little bit closer to you? Sure. How do you typically get involved in a case? Typically, an Arson Bureau agent receives a request, and it's generally either from a law enforcement agency or sometimes from a fire department, stating that they need some expertise in determining the cause of a fire or an explosion. Then we go from there. All right, and on approximately how many fire investigations have you been involved in your tenure with the Arson Bureau? Unfortunately, I don't have an exact number. I could easily say it's between 800 and 1,000. It's probably more than that, but it seems like a whole lot. And of those investigations, have you ever involved yourself in an investigation in which there was a fatality associated with the fire? Yes, sadly, many times I do get involved in a fatal fire investigation. All right, and approximately how many fatal fire investigations have you involved yourself in throughout the years? Again, I can't give you an exact number, but an estimate would be in excess of 100. Some of those would involve multiple fatalities, 4 or 5 people dying at a time. All right, tell us a little bit about your educational and training experience, if you will. Do you hold any degrees? Yes, I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from the University of Wisconsin. In addition to that, I'm a certified police officer, certified firefighter. I'm also certified in fire investigator by the International Association of Arson Investigators. As part of my duties within the Department of Justice, I've been able to receive some additional training from a lot of different agencies, to include the National Fire Academy, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, the FBI. Numerous IAAI, which means International Association of Arson Investigators conferences, as well as different private entities who have put on various types of educational opportunities for fire investigators. If you could elaborate for us, what is the International Association of Arson Investigators? The IAAI, International Association of Arson Investigators, is an organization of people who are devoted to the field of fire investigation, and it's a worldwide association. We have members in that association from Europe, Asia, South America, the Middle East, as well as all of North America. There's about 7,000 to 8,000 people that are in that association at the present time. All right, and approximately how many certified investigators are there? Do you know? Certified fire investigators by the IAAI, there's roughly 1,000 of them right now. All right. Is that in the world, the country, North America? That's 1,000 of them in the world. In your experience, have you been called upon to instruct others in the field of fire investigation? Yes, I teach quite frequently in a lot of different areas. I teach frequently for the National Fire Academy as a member of their adjunct faculty. As part of that, I travel throughout most of the states, it seems, at one time or another, as well as being a guest speaker for IAAI functions. and I teach fire-related subjects, fire death investigation, different subjects related to our field. All right, and do you sit or are you associated with any boards which are involved in either the training or the investigation of fire scenes? Yes, I am. I'm on the board of directors for the International Association of Arson Investigators. In addition to that, I also am the co-chair of the Certified Fire Investigator Committee as part of that. And so I've worked with other people in our field in order to gain the accreditation of being a CFI, a Certified Fire Investigator. All right, as a result of your training and your experience, are you capable of recognizing human remains that have been damaged by fire? Yes, I've seen them many times, and over the course of many years that I've been doing those investigations have gained that skill. Now, Mr. Pevytoe, directing your attention specifically to this case, how did you become involved? On November 9, that was a Wednesday, I was on a different work assignment. I received a telephone call from our Madison office, and they were directing me to come down to Manitowoc to assist other investigations in the ongoing investigation into this incident. And when did you arrive on the scene? Approximately mid-afternoon on the 9th. Upon your arrival, what did you do? Well, the first thing we had to do is we have a security checkpoint, so I went through that. After clearing security, I went down to the command area, if you will, and I spoke to the two lead investigators, Special Agent Fossbender and Detective Wiegert. At some point, was your attention directed to what has now been referred to as a burn pit on the salvage yard property? Yes, I was informed of that on the 9th and actually observed the area, but did no investigation at that time. My actions on the 9th were really just trying to assess what was there and what needs I might do in order to further the investigation. All right, and describe the scene for us on that Wednesday afternoon when you just generally looked around. With respect to the burn pit area, yes. This burn pit is kind of a large sandy plateau, and in there's a depression in there that had some charred remains. It was covered with a tarp to protect it from the elements as best as it could be done, and it had covered an area, I don't know, maybe 2/3 the size of this room. It seemed like the whole sandy area. Maybe a little bit smaller than that, but the burn pit or the depression was maybe 5 by 6 foot, something of that rough approximation. Okay, after making this visual observation, what was the first step in your investigation? The first thing I did was the following day, that was the 10th, and what I actually started out the day doing is going over to the Sheriff's Department in Chilton at Calumet County, and I did a preliminary examination of some debris that had been removed from the burn pit by other investigators before me. All right, tell us about your review of the material. Well, I had an opportunity to take that debris and put it under some high-intensity lighting so it could be inspected. And then piece by piece started to go through that and identify the different items that I suspected would be of evidentiary value. And then I turned them over to the evidence custodian who was with me in order to maintain the custody of those items. Who assisted you in assisted you in this examination? Special Agent Tom Sturdivandt was with me, and Deputy Reamer from the Sheriff's Department was the evidence custodian. He was not doing the inspection, but he was there to receive the evidence. All right, and tell us what items, if any, did you find that you thought were of some evidentiary significance? During that process, I recovered some small fragments that I believed to be consistent with bone. There was some fragments that I suspected were some dental remains, and in addition to that, there were 2 small masses of a charred material that, upon closer examination, I felt that it was consistent with charred muscle, like I've seen on burned fire victims. And I recovered those items and turned those over for evidentiary value. Describe the pieces or pieces that you suspected to be bone and tissue. Can you tell us a little bit more about them? Their condition and how they look to you? Sure. The 2 pieces of tissue material, they were both relatively small. I would estimate between the size of a golf ball and maybe a racquetball, just in general size. They weren't certainly round in shape. They were kind of an unusual shape, but they were heavily charred and blackened. You could see that they had some cushioning. When you squeezed them, they had some give to them, and one of them had a length of what appeared to be bone going through it. All right, and to whom did you provide that material? I handed it directly to Deputy Reamer, or Reamer, excuse me. All right, approximately how much time did you and Agent Sturdivandt spend sifting through this initial harvest from the pit? I would estimate it was about half the day because it was close to the noon hour that we ended that preliminary examination decided to come back to the scene.